folks. The Field and Garden Podcast is honored to be partnering with the Growing for Market magazine. They have been publishing practical ideas and information for direct market flower and vegetable growers for over 31 years. All the articles are written by farmers who get their hands dirty and know what they're doing. The magazine is still on the same mission as when the Flower Farmer book author Len Basinski founded this magazine back in 1992 to connect growers with the best ideas from other growers. There is dedicated flower content in every magazine, a decade's worth of back issues, and over 1,600 archived articles from writers like Aaron Benzenking, Gretel Adams, Pamela and Frank Arnowski, and Jonathan and Megan Lease, all available on the website. With 10 new issues every year available on paper, digital, or both, you're guaranteed to find something to fine-tune your farm in growing for market. So if you do farmers markets, CSA, farm stands, pick your own, florist sales, or wholesaling, whether you're a commercial grower or you just want to grow like one, subscribe to Growing for Market for the nitty-gritty details of growing, marketing, and the business of local farming. And I have a special offer for you. Use the coupon code WORKSHOP to get 25% off any subscription to the original Farmer to Farmer magazine at growingformarket.com. Hey friends, welcome back to another episode of the Field and Garden Podcast. It is your friend Lisa Mason Ziegler, and thanks so much for dropping in, and Happy New Year. I'm in Happy New Year mode all for the entire month of January, y'all. So I hope that everybody is kind of hunkering down and getting down to the real business part of flower farming. And that's kind of what I want to talk about today is season the season. Seize the moment, y'all. But before I do that, I want to just first really reach out and say thank you to everyone that has posted reviews on whichever podcast platform that you listen to this on. You don't know how much that helps me. Every review helps that podcast app know to show my podcast to more people that are looking for gardening and farming stuff to listen to. So I really thank you, and I read every single one of them, and I just appreciate that so much. And this podcast is brought to you by thegardenersworkshop.com, where you can learn about the work that we're doing through education, equipping you. You'll find our online courses, tons of free resources with videos, as well as our online garden shop that sells the same tools, seeds, and supplies, plus my books over there. And when you need those things, we appreciate it when you consider shopping with us. That's what fuels the fire for us to provide all these free resources. So thank you so much. So I heard something that really, I thought, you know what, I need to share about this. So I heard that getting comfortable with success of your business can lead it to decline. And I know this. I get this so much because I understand, you've worked your butt off, particularly, everybody in business works their butt off. It's just in different ways. I used to think that flower farmers worked harder than anybody else in the world until I started looking at my husband, who also owns a business, a plumbing company. Plumbers work so dadgum hard in grueling conditions. And then as you get to know other people in their businesses, you see that, in fact, folks, every entrepreneur works their butt off, right? It is such hard work. And when you finally succeed, like losing that 30 pounds maybe, you think, okay, now I get to eat bonbons or I get to like relax now. I can take my foot off the pedal. I so get that. It has been a long and hard road. And you think, and then we start to convince ourselves, right? I deserve it. I don't have to do that anymore. Or I don't need that hustle. It is so easy to fall into that. And I so get it. I mean, and then another part of that for me is, of course, as with so many business people, I mean, people look at my business and say, oh my gosh, y'all do so many different things. Well, we do, but they're all connected and based on growing flowers, right? And it is so easy to take my eye off the ball in one of those areas and for that area to kind of become stagnant, that I haven't been applying my personal sauce to it, and then it kind of goes flat. So I so understand that becoming comfortable in your success can really lead to decline. So one of those pieces that is really evident to me right now is, as farmers, if you are actually in, the United States and are in your non-harvest mode now, harvesting on a flower farm is what takes the lion's share of the physical demands and it makes your business roll, right? You're planting, you're weeding, you're maintaining, you're harvesting, you're having to sell, you're having to package, you're having to deliver. So in the harvest season, I mean, it's like you have no time to even think. You're exhausted physically from heat and work most of the good times. So when this time comes, the down season, and I think that's an illusion that people think that farmers take the winter off, but nothing could be further from the truth. And I know I have spoken about this before, but I think it needs to be rekindled over and over and over again. Don't let the winter non-harvesting season get away from you. I used to let that happen to me. As soon as we stopped harvesting and everything was planted for the fall to go through winter, I would all right, I'm watching movies. I am going to sit on the couch and do nothing but veg out. And before I know it, it's March. And guess what? It's seed starting time again. So I just want to talk a little bit about this to maybe help you see how to make the most of this time. First and foremost, I am not implying that you should not take a vacation. I mean, I know for a lot of flower farmers, as it was true for me, it was not really possible for me once I became a full-fledged business to literally leave my farm in season. In the harvest season is what I'm talking about. Even though I had wonderful employees, it was just I was not mentally able to let go of what was going on the farm enough. So that means that killer vacations would come during the downtime, the non-harvest time. And so let's just say that I have January and February to take 2 weeks, for me, 2 weeks separate, not 2 weeks in a row, would be the optimal restore and rejuvenation time. And so vacation, on your vacation, but hit the books when you get back from vacation, y'all. Because I think even those of us that have been in the business for years sometimes don't realize how much work we can offload of our plate from the in-season stress workload by taking care of that stuff in the off-season. So let me try to realign myself again here. So I think that it is very natural for us to think we've arrived when our business is up and humming, we're making money, we are doing it, and all of a sudden we think we've achieved it and we take our foot off of the pedal. But nothing, that's the beginning. You know how we talk about the first time you skip harvesting a part of your garden is the beginning of the end of that bed? It's the very same thing with a flower farm or any business, y'all. Sorry, I'm still drinking coffee this morning. It's the very same thing with a business. You can't stop. And I heard this once a long time ago, and I won't go down this rabbit hole far. You know, you may already know that years ago. So I started out as a flower farmer in 1998. And that quickly grew and just about crashed and burned big time. But my success was the push of that. In 2005 is when I launched what we now call the Gardener's Workshop. But it was actually a very different business model. It was a direct sales company. Think Pampered Chef. If you don't know what that is, it is a company that sells kitchen products through home parties with a salesperson that actually comes and demonstrates and shows you how to use their stuff. Well, I thought that was the perfect business model for the Gardener's Workshop. It's like people need to be taught, right? So I launched that, and one of those home parties that I did was a friend, a local friend, right? I go there to do this workshop, as we called these home parties, for this person and her friends. Well, her husband was there because, of course, I get there early to set up, right? So I get there, and he's actually a banker. And that was during a real crazy banking time. I mean, we're talking, y'all, back in 2005, 2006 time. And that's when there was so much bank merging going on here locally. A lot of our local banks were all becoming one. And he was in the hierarchy of one of those banks. And so he was telling me how impressed he was with this business model that I'd come up with, da-da-da-da-da. And then he looked at me with a very serious face and said, here's the facts. You are only as solvent as your last sale. I'm going to say that again. You are only as solvent as your last sale. What that means is you can have the biggest sales season of a lifetime. But guess what, friend? To keep your business moving forward, you have to have more sales. And it is no different for flower farmers. I mean, if you're somebody that's growing a ton of flowers and not selling them, you're an avid gardener with a lot of cut flowers. But to make a flower farm in business, you have to keep selling the flowers. So you have to keep your foot on the pedal. So the point of all of this is, friends, is I want you to seize this time in January and February. And so for your business to grow or to keep at it, what we gain or get from success is to become more successful on a flatter path, maybe. So not everybody wants to scale a business to be bigger and bigger. Some of us do, some of us don't. But even if you just want let's just say that you're a flower farmer that is doing subscriptions because you are funding maybe the family vacation every year, you're making a major mortgage payment every year to pay down your debt, you're paying for your kids to go to private school, or you're somebody that wants to scale and grow a big business, pay your house off in 1 year or whatever, you know. No matter what your goal is, to reach any of those goals, you have to either keep growing your business or keep your foot on the pedal to keep it the same, because more people will be encroaching on your circle. So what is the winter work that I think is so important for flower farmers, or was important for me. Forget that I just said for flower farmers. This is what became really important to me. I'm just going to go down. I just scratched them all down here. First off, restoration. I've Anybody that is a flower farmer doesn't need to be told this, but if you're thinking about flower farming, or maybe you're a home gardener listening to the Field and Garden podcast, when you are a flower farmer and season starts and the heat starts, where I am in southeastern Virginia, it's nothing to have a run of 95-degree, hot and humid, weeks on end. And I just can't tell you what that does to you physically. You still have to do your job every single day. So there's not a lot of thinking going on in the season. So when you hit the end of that season, you have a lot of jobs that obviously have to get done. But once you reach, for me, it was always January 1st. I always had a great girls' weekend that I used to have since one of our friends passed away, whose home we used to go to, that doesn't happen. So I had to find another way. That short period of laughing, good fun, lots of good food, no work. I now do that with Stevie, right? And you have to restore. You've got to refill your tank. And I prefer to do that in 2 separate times during this downtime. Downtime, again, is the non-harvest season. So then once I've done some restoration and I'm back to work, the number one thing for me is to get all of these little jobs done that have been sitting on my pebbles on my shoulders, y'all. I've often talked about boulders on my shoulders, things that I just carry around, and how good it feels to let them just roll off my shoulders, down my arm, and out of here by either resolving them, getting rid of them, or whatever, kicking them to the curb. Well, there's all these little pebble jobs that pile up and make a boulder, right? And so those aren't necessarily just flower farming. Sometimes they're my life issues, obligations I have, whether it's to church or to family or whatever, that you keep thinking, I want to do that so much, but you never get to it. And the way I figure all that out is I do a brain dump. If you're one of my students, you know what that means. You have a worksheet that you can go into the course and download. If you're not, Google it and figure out what it is and do it. It is enormous. And then go through the steps of pulling out those significant things that you need to do. So that's number one. And then I get down to planning my season. This is not something I spend weeks on, y'all. Close the door, lock it, tell your family you're unavailable for these 2 work days, and do your job. Plan your season. I'm not talking the nitty-gritty details of maybe exactly how many zinnias and how many colors on each succession, but get your plan down for the season. Where are the cool and warm season flowers going to be planted? The big picture stuff. When do you need to start those crops that so often get forgotten? The cool flowers that are fall planted, the cool season cut flower kale that's supposed to be harvested in the fall. Guess what? That seed has to be started in the middle of summer when you are cooked alive. The last thing you're thinking about is that. When do you start that dianthus that needs vernalization? Right alongside that kale. So get your big plan, that 30,000-foot view, down on paper, which will lead the rest of your planning. And what are those key steps through your season? Like for me, it's like, all right, oh my goodness, we could talk about this for days, but I'm not, because you wouldn't listen to it for days. Y'all, one of the things that I have learned through being a book author and creating courses and kind of sitting on top of this big old business that I've now got this amazing crew, is that part of your skill that you need to hone in on is getting down to the nitty gritty. Get rid of all that smoke. Get rid of all that fog. Get down to the important details. I don't want my team knows that I have to hear from 5 or 6 different areas. I don't need details. I just want to know what's important for me to know to make a decision about something we need to make a decision about, right? And the same thing is true for you. That's true on any scale. Don't get caught up in the details that derails you. So figure out those key steps. So for me, that is, it's like, all right, I'm going to plan the seed starting on this day. That means it's going to be completed on this day. This isn't going to be, it turns into a 7-day event, right? You do what you have to do as a writer. A lot of people don't know when you're writing a book and you have a publisher for a boss, they tell you the number of how many words are in the book, how many pictures you're going to have, what size the book is, and then you have to adhere to that. And what you learn is that you can say the same thing in 5 words or 500 words. It's all a matter of skill and concentration. And that's what you have to do as a business owner. So I get down on this part of my planning is key steps that have to happen. It's like, all right, the garden for that very early spring cool flower planting, that should have been on my fall calendar last fall when the soil was not wet, when I could just make those beds, prepare them. They're ready, sitting and waiting. So that needs to go on your fall count. Right now, you write that down on your fall plan. Whenever you do that. For me, that's usually like September, early October. Prepare the very early spring planting beds, right? Those are the kinds of things. When do I need to order Lysianthus? When do I need to order seeds? A year in advance nowadays with the shortages of everything. So you need to plan those key steps through the seasons. And that can all be done on the big calendar. And I have included, and it is an affiliated link, I have included the link to the big calendar that I actually use for all of my planning. And I've just done a YouTube video kind of showing a little bit of how I do my planning steps, and we will put a link to that down below also. So all of this is on that big calendar, and y'all, I've know that I've talked about this big calendar a lot, but I'm telling you, it's it's the brain of my farm. It is so simple. No, you're not. I always had this dream that I'd be journaling. Well, journaling is great, but how does journaling help you to plan next year or the year after? This big calendar allows you to quick reference what you need to do and when you need to do it. And so check out, and if you aren't already subscribed to my YouTube channel, friends, please have a look at that. So the big calendar is really where I write all these key steps. It's a seed starting calendar. It's the garden preparing calendar. It's when we order supplies. When those key times come, it's all on the big calendar, because you have to remember, when I walk out to my workspace in July and I have people here back in our high production years when I had 5 people showing up to cut flowers or to do whatever needed to be done that day, my mind was so toasted from heat exhaustion constantly through the season. We would walk to this calendar, and as long as I had my glasses on, we knew what we were supposed to do that day. And that's the benefit of having a quick reference tool, and the big calendar is actually what has done it for me. So what are some of the other things to seize the season? This in-season, you can offload in-season work into your off-season time. And I know if you're a student, I've actually talked about this in the course, is if you are the person that is feeding the family, your household, fill your freezer. Take 1 week of this winter, and that is the week you are going to make a huge, for me, my go-to is to make a huge batch of spaghetti sauce, put it into containers that's enough for Steve and I to have for a meal. I can walk in the house and have that on the table in 20, 30 minutes along with the salad, right? There's lots of go-to meals like that. Whatever your family likes, enjoys, and that freezes well, take a week and each day make some of those meals. Then resist eating them until the season starts. And to know that you have, and what I do is I utilize those meals on harvest days. Those are the hardest, longest, hottest, most exhausting days on the farm for us. And knowing when I get up that morning that I have dinner in the freezer, that, I might need to take it out. Then I have those last minute go-to quick meals like ribeye. I have a stack of ribeye steaks from our cousin Glendore Farms where we get all of our meat from. I get ribeyes, which I can defrost in a nanosecond and have a quick, easy meal. Now is the time to think about that, shop for it, do it, fill your freezer. And then you got to get smarter, right? You got to move your business. And this is the time to really go to conferences, get smarter, take online courses, read books, read those articles. For me, I so often will come across something that I want to read. There is no learning going on during the season for me. I fall into bed every night exhausted, but I am pretty good about collecting those links or those magazines or piling those books up on my nightstand. That's what I'm going to do in the off season. And the other part of this is also the time where I spend the most of my money looking for equipment, making upgrades, investing in more employees, perhaps, shoring up that part of my business. This year, we are revamping our organizational flow chart, which shows who's responsible for what. And I've actually outsourced that, y'all. I have somebody that's, taken a bird's eye view of that. And because there's just so many pieces of the pie. And this is the time of the year that we shore up our business, not just our growing plan. This is when you scope out new customers. This is when you're flushing out what your marketing plan is going to be for this year. This is where you're going to say, you know what, this is the year that I'm actually going to do some social media paid advertising to reach out to people in my little community to let them know that I do a bouquet subscription, or I have a farm stand, or. This is the time of the year that you can fuel your mind and take a day and do that. Focus, y'all. You gotta bear down on the important details. I think far too many of us, just like I did, think they're going to take 2 months to plan their fields. And while that is important, there is so many other pieces that piece is futile if you don't do the rest of the pie, y'all. And this is the time to seize the moment. So friends, I hope this has encouraged you to bear down on the season. And I just can't tell you how easy it is to let it get away from you. And I'll close with this one last example. I've mentioned from time to time, and I think the cat's out of the bag, that I have a new book in the oven. And my first deadline for half of my manuscript was January 4th. And I'm the person that works best under pressure, leaving things, because there's always so much for me to do. And it is so easy for me now that that manuscript has been submitted. And first off, and the book won't be out until February of 2024, y'all. So there's still much work to be done on all parties involved. But how easy is it for me to now say, oh, I don't have to worry about writing the other half of that book because my next deadline is like 4 months away. I totally, no matter where you are in your business, it's easy to take your foot off the pedal. But I'm telling you, don't do it, because it just leads to decline, to your business either fizzling or spiraling, or it creates a big old bottleneck, which is what I'm famous for doing. And I can't do that anymore because it affects so many other people in my business. I don't want to do that to them. So I have upped my game from doing that. So friends, if you want to connect with me more on, if you want to, I do lives where you can submit questions and I get to as many as I can. You can find that on the homepage of thegardenersworkshop.com. There's a page, Connect with Lisa. You can see all the different ways you can do that. And friends, I thank you for dropping in. And if I would love for you to subscribe to the podcast, to my YouTube channel, like and share it with your friends. All of us working together is what pushes this mountain, pushes this boulder up the mountain a little bit more. And I appreciate each and every one of you and love bringing you my hiccups, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So friends, until we meet again, ciao.